Hey guys, welcome back to the Hill and Valley Podcast. This is episode 6. We're going to be talking all about editing and post-production.
So both of us edit videos pretty often. You as the head of post-production, you probably edit the most out of anyone here, and you also just kind of oversee the entire post-production process. But I've been video editing for a long time, and each of us kind of pick up projects here or there that need to be edited, and so it is all in all a collaborative effort. But yeah, today we're just going to talk about some of the things we've learned over the past few years editing videos as a career. And any tips and tricks we've picked up along the way, or some challenges we faced. So I guess just to start off, I'll ask you, Rick, what is your favorite part about video editing? Like, what makes it fun for you?
Post-production in general is my favorite part of the entire process. Like, we start, starting with like pre-production, production, post-production, and stuff like that. It's my favorite aspect of all of those. And the reason is, I feel like there's a lot of organization when it comes to editing, and I love organizing as a person. So, like getting into an edit and being able to organize everything into like kind of like a neat way, and putting everything on the timeline, and then creating like something from just those clips is just like very rewarding. And honestly, like I feel like you have a lot of the freedom and creativity for most projects, to make things stand out. Or if you're editing something that's kind of more boring or informational, not as much. But I feel like you have a lot of like creative, you have a lot of creative freedom when it comes to editing, and also when you're filming it. But I feel like in the editing process is when a lot of creativity comes out with like color grading, duration of clips, effects, transitions, and all that kind of stuff is really fun. So
yeah, and it's not like you're making something from nothing, but in a way it is, because during production, you're filming a video, you're creating a video, but most of the time, without those clips being cut together and pieced together to create a story or to just create a cohesive video, you can't really do anything with just those plain clips. So, even though I think a lot of creative choices are made on set and on the days of production, at the end of the day, it's not a video until you make those choices behind the computer and edit it into a complete piece. So yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that, where do you start? Let's say, for example, Adam and I just did a production yesterday. We come back to the studio, we import the cards, they're in our file management system, starting with opening up a new Resolve project. Where do you start with the editing process?
The editing process starts with first making sure that all of the media that you shot for the whole production is already imported. We've had a few instances where I edited an entire video and then found out, later on that, oh, hey, there's this whole other folder that we either didn't import, was around a different folder that I didn't see, and then I have to kind of like go backwards and re-edit a lot of it. So the most important first step is just to make sure, okay, do I have all of the media? And then from there, what I do is I name the project file in the right folder on Resolve in our Resolve database, and then I pretty much immediately import everything that will be necessary for the project, and then start organizing it into bins and like different timelines and stuff like that.
There's a lot you can do before the editor takes over to make editing easier, and I think if I had to just boil that all down to one word, it's communication. So like you said, that example of when you edited a project and didn't realize that there was a folder of content that you were missing, that it was probably a result of just whoever produced the project not communicating to you that there were X amount of shoot days broken up into X amount of folders between X amount of cameras. So all of that, communicating that to whoever's doing your post-production is really important. But then other aspects of that can be, for example, using a slate. Just making sure that as you're filming, you're taking steps to make the process easier for your editor. So that's probably the biggest thing we do, is slate as much as we can. There's a lot of ways in which communicating between every person involved in the production, whether that's actual production or post-production, is extremely helpful.
So for you, how do you convey a story when you're editing a video? Like if it calls for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a lot on what the purpose of the video is. Every video should have a story of some form, whether it's like a product commercial. You can kind of create a story arc between the different locations or backgrounds or like different lighting setups you're using for these product shots. And so I think the number one thing is just sequencing, just deciding, just like a story, where do you start, what happens in the middle, and where do you end up. So usually those are some of the first decisions I make when editing, right after going through all the footage and understanding what I'm working with. But yeah, I'd say the main thing is sequencing, deciding where you're going and how you're going to get there. And then after that comes pacing, where you decide how much time am I spending on this story beat, and how do I want the viewer to feel based on the pacing of the edit. Is it exciting, kind of like hype reel kind of thing, where there's a lot of cuts, like 2 cuts per second or something like that, or is this a more calm, more serious, contemplative piece where you want someone to really have the time to absorb and understand what they're looking at? Like, how long do you want to hold on a shot? Some of those decisions are made on the day of production based on whoever is filming it and making sure that they're holding shots long enough, or doing camera movements that kind of lend themselves well to a transition or kind of dictate the pace and feeling of the shot. So it's a give and take. That's why pre-production is really important. If you can nail down what each shot is going to be and the purpose it serves, usually the pre-production, production, and post-production will meet in the middle and flow together a lot better. So after sequencing and pacing, obviously there's so many other aspects to this, between color grading, sound design, like you said, effects and transitions. Like what are some of the other most important aspects of video editing that you find help drive either a story or just a pleasing image, pleasing video to look at?
So one thing I've noticed in a lot of interviews that we film when I'm editing them, oftentimes if the production or the producer and the director, like if they're good at prompting the interviewees with good questions and stuff like that, a lot of the responses can actually go like hand in hand. So what I like doing is for interviews, finding similar talking points and then cutting between each person, and I feel like that makes the interviews very interesting, because you hear one person talking about something, and then you hear a different person talk about the similar thing, and then it's like almost like they're having a conversation about the same thing, and I feel like it's very engaging for like interviews.
Yeah, I agree, especially if you're asking multiple people the same question.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do that, and it's almost like a unnatural way to do this, but like sometimes when I'm watching an interview that either we've made or someone else has made, I can kind of tell that the producer has done that with the questions, where one person starts a sentence explaining something or talking about something, and their sentence doesn't finish, and then somebody else picks it up, and it's not like they're saying the same words that you expected the first person to say, but it basically like allows you to have this sort of run-on sentence between multiple people's voices, which sounds like it'd be a bad thing, but I feel like a lot of times that's how you can get the most like concise and powerful lines in an interview, because it's like the best moments of each person's response to the question, but tied together into this thing that like has a few different perspectives in it, but all talking about the same subject. And yeah, like you said, that's another give and take between pre-production and post-production.
Yeah.
It's something I want to kind of jump into. I'd love to hear your take on it afterwards, but the sort of step-by-step process of editing, which I think it changes depending on the project. For example, if you have a project that is extremely pre-produced, where you know exactly what you're working with as soon as you jump in, there aren't a ton of shots. There are only the shots that were on the shot list. Usually that's kind of just plug and play, where you find your in and out points of each clip. You find when the director calls action, when the camera cuts, when the person on camera finishes doing what they're doing, or whenever the action finishes. You find those segments, you just string them out onto a timeline, and then once you have the full story like laid out, then you can just start trimming things down, messing around with where to cut the cameras, pacing, sequencing, like I was saying. But I feel like usually my process, at least, is skim through all the footage. Usually won't watch all of every clip first, but I'll skim through just so I'm aware of how many different scenes there are, how many different like different versions of the same action there are. But usually then I will make a string out timeline. Sometimes I'll make multiple, where I'm just trying to find the best, or at least the usable options of every take of whatever the action is. And if it's a longer project, like for example, we did a music video this summer that had 4 or 5 different locations. So I remember we made 4 or 5 different timelines with the string outs for each scene. Just so that way, when we're looking at the master timeline and we're thinking, oh, like the singer in this take did their action like a little bit slower and it doesn't leave enough room for the action following it to happen on time with the music. So you can quickly go, all right, let me go to that scene, string out, find that section of the shoot, and then look at all my other options there. So just from like a organizational standpoint, that's kind of my favorite way to work. And then from there, say in this example, if I'm making a video that is only one location, one scene, I just have one string out timeline. I'll usually keep that there with all of the usable takes. Then I'll duplicate that timeline and then start. Usually what I'll do is I'll like scoot all of the strung out clips sort of towards the end of the timeline, like leave myself as much room as the video is going to be. Like if I know it's going to be a 1 minute long video, I'll leave like a minute or 2 at the beginning of the timeline, and then just start going through, grabbing my favorite of each one, make a rough draft from that, and then if I feel like it's going in the right direction, I'll make those other judgment calls of like when I need to swap out a take. And so I'll usually like, I guess picture lock isn't quite the right term, but like I'll usually get a draft that I'm happy with, where I'm like, these are the right shots in the right order. I don't think I'm missing anything. This is like at least the skeleton of what this video is going to be. And then I kind of go step by step with the other elements, where I'll usually do a rough color grade first, just to make sure I don't need to swap out a take for exposure or anything like that. And then make sure all of my cuts are dialed in, which usually if the song or if the video has music with it, I'll usually try to add music as soon as I'm done stringing out the clips, because editing to the beat of a song can really help the pacing and just like the consistency of the edit. But yeah, I think just in terms of my step-by-step process, it's usually stringing out, rough cut, loose color grade, add music, dial in the cuts a little bit more so that I'm pretty confident where everything's going to be. And then it comes to fine-tuning audio and color grading, and then any transitions if it's needed. Does that relate to you? Like, is that similar to how you usually operate?
Yeah, I'd say that process is very similar. I think the only thing I would do that might be a little quicker, that I personally do, because I do like that process where you kind of, you string everything out and then you start building the edit. What I kind of do is, with me stringing out, is me kind of just at the same time building a first draft. So I find all the clips like, in the bin, and I go through, like, not all of them, like you said, but for the majority of the good ones. And I put them in the timeline and kind of just string them out into like what I think the first draft would be. And then usually, and like I do a rough color grade, I do, simple things just to make it like clean so that like the client or like internally we can review the videos. And usually after like the first draft, or like the first draft, like internal videos, like when we show each other the drafts, then sometimes people will have notes about, oh, is there like a better take for this? Or was there, is there one that shows this product better? Then I'll go back into the bin and I'll look at the other clips that I didn't look at before and kind of say, okay, is there better takes of this? And then switch those out and stuff like that. And then, yeah, after that, once the first draft's pretty much good and everybody likes, the shots that I use and the cuts, then I either hand it off to Adam to do a final color grade, or I'll do sound design and then like adjust the music to go like the interviews, like the audio levels and all that kind of stuff to really finalize it. But yeah, once I finish all of the audio transitions and the like sound effects, that's usually when I hand it off to Adam to do like a final color grade, and he'll send it to the client. Sometimes with color grading, we have like base color grades that we do for certain projects if they're like more simple. For example, like podcasts are like usually a pretty easy color grade, and like other things that aren't as creative, I'll just send it to the client to get their opinion for the first few drafts, and then Adam will usually just double check it and then send them like one final version. So yeah, I feel like our processes are like fairly similar. So
sort of skipping over the string out process can definitely lead to a quicker edit. And like I said, if it's a project where I know what I'm looking for and I know that it's there somewhere, I can just like find the right clip, drop it in the timeline, skip the whole string out process. I think some of the examples of projects where I feel like stringing things out have been really helpful are shoots that don't have a direct story. Usually they're like, I think last year we shot a ton of product videos that were somewhat lifestyle as well. It was like, we shot a lot of dog products. And so it was like a person and their dog in their house or outside interacting with the product. We usually have some sort of storyboard of like, all right, here's like a beginning, middle, and end that could work for the video, but then it's also a lot of just like montage stuff.
Yeah.
So that's usually where I find stringing out is the most helpful, because you can kind of organize it like that too. You can be like, all right, here's all the good shots where it's a close-up of the product. Here's all the good shots of just the dog and its owner, and it's not really about the product, it's about building this world and making you connect to the person.
Yeah.
Because with those types of videos, I feel like there's like 50 different ways you could make the same video just by swapping around clips a little bit, because there's usually so many takes of a similar action. So in more montage style videos, I like to kind of lay my groundwork of, all right, here's what I have if I need this kind of shot. Here's what I have if I need this kind of shot. Then when I start editing, it's just going through and finding the best take, starting there, and then changing it if I need to. But yeah, again, it totally depends on the type of video you're making. As of late, I feel like video editing has become cool, and it never used to be cool. Like, I feel like on Instagram and YouTube, you get all these content creators who just make these videos that are kind of about nothing, but it's all about like the flashy edits. What is your take on like flashy transitions and like cuts that are way too fast, or like basically where the video is about the edit?
Yeah, so
because to be honest, that's kind of what got me into making videos, and then I realized that there's so much more than that, but I still see those things eventually or occasionally, and it kind of just makes me laugh a little.
yeah, no, I like when we add cool transitions. Nothing like insane or crazy that's like unrealistic, but yeah, I think what it comes down to is like, in my opinion, is like people's attention span. I think that when with really fast edits that are really flashy, I think people under the age of 15 like watching those, and I think that's who those cater to a lot of the time, and they're like, oh wow, this is so cool, and like, you know, it kind of makes them want to, you know, start their own YouTube channel, get a camera and learn at video editing, and or just keep watching that creator. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it definitely, in my opinion, those creators cater to like a specific audience, where like the generation that's like 20, like pretty much anybody under 30, I would say, is like a lot who's watching these kind of videos, or the edit is like geared towards. I mean, we've definitely tried to make edits that are a little quicker and, you know, more engaging and more fun to watch, but I feel like there's a difference between that and like making a flashy product video versus like a crazy, like, I don't know, I don't want to compare it to anything specific, but just like these crazy videos with like really crazy transitions where it's mostly about, like Joel said, mostly about the transitions and not about the edit. It's mostly about the crazy cool effects and not about like the, you know, the story behind it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the difference for me between those kinds of flashy videos that now I find kind of cheesy and professional videos is exactly that, is that those videos are usually made by someone on social media for themselves. They're not selling anything.
Yeah,
if anything, they're selling their skills. You know, it's just like a flex. And so when I think of, like you said, quick, fast-paced product videos, there's a lot of those that are very professional and look really great and maybe have cuts every second and some like wipe transitions or other creative transitions. But like usually those videos, the flashy editing is motivated by it being a good video underneath that. Like, for example, we did some fun, like, I guess unusual for us types of edits with the Cracker video. And we also, like, also in the studio, we did a lot of cool, like, product stuff with that. We, like, flung it in the air, like, got it super close to camera. We did some green screen keying. but I think that works because we tied it into a lifestyle video, and it's obviously an ad for this product.
Right.
It's less about the camera moves and the Luma wipes and like just flexing your Premiere or Resolve skills.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's cool. I mean, especially with like After Effects, because there's a lot of things you can do with like animation and stuff like that to add to videos. And I think it's very cool. But like Joel was saying, they're not usually selling anything. They're selling themselves with like their talent and their the products they use and stuff like that. Not to be bleak, but in my opinion, in 2 years or less, video editing will be almost fully automated. And I hate saying that, but
Yeah.
I've seen a few things already with Premiere, with their AI feature and stuff like that. It will only get better. And I think there will become a point where, and they're catering to these people that, go on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and, make day in the life videos or podcasts and very easy cut and dry videos. And I genuinely believe by the end of this year, it will be even more prevalent where somebody will put footage into a program. It will spit out a 2 to 5 minute video that's very engaging and with text and titles and everything, and for very little to no effort. And I think that over the years it'll become easier. And then bigger companies will find that out, and they'll hire some 16-year-old kid in high school to film vertically on his phone and just put it into the system. So in a bleak way, I think it will become obsolete. However, there is still a very big creative aspect to editing, and I feel like there is a lot of like organization, like with movies. I mean, I know like even movies could probably be automated eventually, but I mean, with the CGI and stuff they use and all the animations, I don't think so. I think there's a lot that goes into it like creatively. With simple social media videos, I think a lot of that will be automated, but with the stuff we're doing with like brand stories and like, short movies and like commercials and stuff like that, I doubt will be like fully automated, but I mean, I do see a future where that could happen, because it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know. There's a lot it already talks about like what a lot of AI can do like with Photoshop and with photos. So
Yeah. I mean, obviously technology is making the process more efficient, but also automating a decent amount of it. But I think we saw this recently with the like AI generative art, where like, yeah, you can just tell AI to make you a work of art and you can just refine it and everything. And like, yes, AI is like making it, but there's a person prompting it and having an idea or like trying to get somewhere with that help of automation and AI. And so I think it's going to be the same with video editing, where maybe, yes, at some point, I'm sure the need for video editors will be slightly lower because the monotonous tasks involved with video editing will be reduced. So video editors will become more efficient using these tools. But at the end of the day, it still has to be like someone has to make the choices of what type of video are we trying to make? Like, what information do I give this program in order to yield the best result for what we're looking for? I don't think it'll ever be entirely like soulless and bereft of creativity, but yeah, it's definitely moving things along a lot quicker. And unfortunately, like you said about the like 16-year-old filming vertically, I've already seen that a ton, where like most of the ads I see now are shot on an iPhone and not edited or just edited in iMovie. And it sucks. In my opinion, it sucks that is how companies can make money with marketing now, because as a creative person, I really enjoy seeing stuff that has a lot of work put into it.
Yeah, and that's how we are, as a business. Anytime we get any kind of product, client, we love going above and beyond and making it look as good as possible, because that's what sells the product as well. I feel like people forget that it's not just the product, how well it can help your everyday life, but it's also like, look at Apple commercials, the production value they put into those. I'm like, that looks so good. Oh my God, like I want that phone, or I want this Apple Watch because it looks so good. But like, I feel like for us with these products, it's like we want the product to look so good where somebody's like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Like I want to try that. Not like, some short, quick, like blurry ad where it's showing the product. Like I feel like there is a lot of human creativity that's left with like those kind of product videos and making them look really good. And with the edit, because you can give a prompt to AI to like edit like a certain section, but I feel like with these edits that would be kind of boring and more cut and dry. But I feel like with the high production value, with the filming the product and then the afterwards the post production of it, will really make it like stand out to be like a really good, like a high value like production of like this like product video.
I guess, yeah, my point with it is I'm personally not afraid for our jobs in the next like couple of years.
I'm not.
I think
Yeah,
it's
no.
gonna change.
Yeah.
We might have to learn some new tools to keep up, but that's just kind of how the industry goes. You know?
And I think if anything, it will help, not hurt. Like I think that like with Photoshop and like photo editing already, like if you mess up something, you can use AI to like kind of save you a little bit. Like now, same with video editing. I feel like in the future, like if something happens where like mess something up or something like that, I feel like you can use it. And then also like if you're cutting interviews, you can literally have it cut out like where there's no talking. You know, where we already have to do that manually. I'm sure there's already programs where you can do that. So in a way, it'll be helpful. I mean, I was being a little dramatic. I'm sure it will take a long time for it to be pretty automated, but I know that that's definitely like, you know, in the future because of like the Firefly thing I saw with Premiere and stuff like that. They already have those programs. But I think that will like help creators, you know, edit quicker and then add their own creative like spin on it while just getting like the structure down of like the edit. So
yeah. All right. Well, I feel like we have talked each other's ears off about video editing. This wasn't a super technical podcast. We're not trying to be instructors here. We just wanted to kind of share our experience and our thoughts and opinions on where things are going. But we do this pretty much full time. We're editing videos all the time. So if you guys have any questions for us, please feel free to leave a comment, whether it's about video editing, post-production, any stage of production, or anything else that we do here at Hill and Valley Creative. You should check out the rest of our channel. We do all sorts of other kinds of videos, not just podcasts. And please consider subscribing if you enjoy what you see there. If you have any questions or comments about video production or anything else we do, we'd love to hear them down below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.